you're looking for us, Fear of a Craft Beer Planet podcast, you can find us at FOACBP. Get it? Fear of a Craft Beer Planet, right? We are on all social media forums. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Fear Craft Beer. You can also like us on Facebook, Fear of a Craft Beer Planet. You'll get all of our news, updates, tweets on everything Fear of a Craft Beer Planet, as well as when new episodes are going to air and be uploaded to your iTunes, SoundCloud, or Android podcast apps.
That's theme music right there. When you look up theme music in the dictionary for things that people listen to, I think that's right at the top of the list for theme music. Funny story about our theme music. Rob and I just went out to San Diego a couple days ago to go visit Ballast Point. And we're standing in the airport in Philadelphia, and the soundtrack was ridiculous at Philadelphia Airport. Funky, 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 funky. Guess what song came on at the fucking airport while we were waiting for our flight?
They played our song?
They played our song at the airport while we were waiting for our flight. We could not have been more giddy. Wow. It was so ridiculous. We're like, well, people like hear that. No one knows who we are, what we do. And they're like, what is this? And the one dude was with us. He was like, I know this from De La Soul. I was like, yes! So do we! That's why it's our theme song. So hey, everybody, Rob Forzik is raising his hand because we've instituted a raising hand policy because everyone talks over each other. Richard, good work out of you.
Why, thank you.
So what I'm going to do before Rob Forzik jumps in here is I'm going to set things up a little bit. So I'm Jay Rose. Welcome, everybody, to Fear of a Craft Beer Planet, Craft Beer Podcast. I actually think our name was just changed. I'm not sure that I knew that.
You got the memo?
But I think we had to change the name of our podcast, and I want to look it up here just to make sure that I say it the right way.
It's very important.
It's very important in a course of discussions with things that have happened recently, with things that have happened recently in the craft beer world. We have called ourselves Fear of a Craft Beer Planet, which we thought was great. But Richard has now renamed our situation to be Fear of a Well-Made Corporate Beer Planet.
That's what we're actually afraid of, right?
Turns out that the fear is real, and it's being squashed, and it's becoming corporate, more corporate every single day of the week. So that's the new name of the show, Fear of a Well-Made Corporate Beer Planet. That's a mouthful, and I actually have to read it because I'll never fucking remember that. So as we're setting it up, I'm Jay Rose from Hunterdon Brewing Company in the Specialty Division, where we go around and educate people on the glories of things that are still craft. Richard is over there fucking up and making buzz noises. Rob Forzik is across the table from me. Rob Forzik, good to see you.
You as well, sir.
Thank you. Dan Jacoby is making us sound somewhat legit.
Trying to.
Richard's
not making it easy, though.
World traveler, Rastafarian, king of swing, Richard himself.
Everybody's favorite.
Just put a pop screen on his mic, and he's got a beautiful stout in front of him. He did not take a muscle relaxer before we did this. No. I suggested maybe he should. He said no, so I don't know that. Did you visit the green room before you got here?
A little bit.
Okay,
yeah.
The green room has been visited. Very good, very neat. So Richard is in prime headspace for today, and we're here live. Not so much when you hear it, but right now we're live at the Yards Brewing Company on Delaware Avenue in Philadelphia, one of our favorite breweries. And not only are we live at Yards, but we're live with a very, very special person sitting right to my left. The one and only, the best name in the craft beer business.
That's correct.
Don't deny it. Don't deny it.
Can't deny it.
Own it.
Maybe a different
industry. The one and only Ron Johnson.
Ron Johnson.
Hello.
Ron Johnson from Yards Brewing Company is the New Jersey rep for Yards Brewing. And he's the guy that spreads the gospel of Yards throughout all of the bars and liquor stores.
I consider myself a beer missionary.
He is a beer missionary. Not only is he a beer missionary, he's also an artiste.
That he is.
Ron Johnson, where can people find you on Instagram, for instance?
Ron Yards NJ.
Is there any underscoring, or it's just one word?
That's just one word.
Ron Yards NJ. If you are on Instagram and you go to Ron Yards NJ. So what Ron Johnson does, Ron is an artist. So what Ron does is Ron will go visit different accounts, and he will spot places where he can pull out his easel and he can do some painting.
Bosses, please.
Your bosses know; they're very aware of what you're up to. So Ron will
tell them you see me before 9 or after 5.
So Ron will sit down and with his easel, and he will paint a landscape of something that's relatively close to an account that he's in, with a picture of a Yard's beer in the landscape. Am I right about that, Ron Johnson?
Yes, I do that.
I had a chance to run around with Ron Johnson. We were cruising around in his vehicle a few months ago with Will Reed from Standard Tap, and we were bar hopping, and I sat in Ron's front seat, and the amount of art supplies in the front seat of your car was staggering.
Those were Yard selling supplies.
They were Yard selling supplies.
It probably rivals the amount of drug paraphernalia in the front seat of Richard's car.
Very true. When I got out of Ron's vehicle, I had Yard's selling supplies all over my hands that happened to be black. Yes. And I was like, well, that's a sure sign that I was in Ron Johnson's vehicle.
Nice.
So we're here today. We're here today at Yards. Rob and I had a sales meeting this morning, where we sat here, and Tim Roberts, head brewer.
Tim Roberts, head brewer. Yes,
head brewer at Yards, yes. Gave us an unbelievably in-depth tour of the place and the brewing process, and why they do what they do and how they do what they do. And we're going to get him on.
How was that, by the way? I thought it was just...
What do you mean, how was it?
I thought it was fantastic.
Fucking great.
Yeah, I know you guys are cicerones. You know a bunch about beer. He loves to talk about it, and he gets really into...
In depth.
Wow. Yeah, no, I liked it.
That's what we wanted. That's what... Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, it was awesome. It was awesome.
I know. Ballast Point will take you here and there, fly out to San Diego and stuff. But I know what you really want is nourishment, knowledge, and the real experience of the brewing process and the first person point of view.
Ron Johnson, if it's
I thought I'd bring that to you. I can't give it to you. I'm just a sales guy with my...
If we're thirsty for anything, it's knowledge.
Yes.
As long as the ABV on that knowledge is 8%, we're straight. We're not remotely straight.
Yes.
Richard, how are you over there real fast?
I'm a mess.
I expected that.
Not the mess you're thinking. I pinched a nerve or some goofy nonsense.
Doing what? What are you doing that pinches a nerve?
God, do I? You know what?
I'd love to know.
I've probably moved more things in my newish job, than I did for 8 years of my life in radio. Like moving drum sets and amps and speakers, and I'm fat and old.
But not photo booth equipment.
That's exactly what I was thinking he was going to.
He's moving that too.
Yeah, this weekend, photo booth equipment.
So Ron Johnson, I don't know if you're familiar with Richard, but Richard is a guy that has he's a 43-year-old gentleman with about 43 different jobs.
Yes.
So at any given moment, he could be doing any particular job, and right now I don't know what he's doing, but I'm sure he's doing something.
Is he Jamaican?
They're
hard workers.
Well,
he's Rastafarian.
His nickname is Richard the Rastafarian, so there's a lot of that going on.
Can't be a lazy man.
Can't be lazy man.
I try not to be.
But it's the weed. It's not you.
Could be.
It's the weed. It ain't you.
I try.
You're a go-getter, but as soon as that weed shows up, everything slows down.
There's times of the day when I'm very productive, and then there's times of the day where I'm just not so productive.
I was going to raise my hand and ask you if I could say that. He's a go-getter.
As long as he's going to get weed, he's a go-getter.
He's a go-getter. All right, I like it.
Yeah, it's fucking great. So Richard, you're a mess. You've got a pinched nerve.
Yeah,
you've got a beer in front of you.
Yes.
You've got a prescription for muscle relaxers, which you haven't taken.
Right here in the bag.
And he's got them right in the bag. Yep. So I guess we should bring on Tim.
Yeah.
I guess we should bring on Tim.
Hey, can I recommend?
Go ahead.
Superhero yoga in the morning.
I have done some stretches.
What does that mean?
No, yoga's stretching, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I know what yoga is.
What is superhero yoga? Actually, I asked that. I'm going to pretend I don't know, but I know.
Go ahead.
Your favorite superheroes. Breathe and stretch just into their poses. That's all you do in the morning while you're making coffee.
That's not where I thought that was going at all.
I sort of do that.
Yeah.
I sort of do that because Ron Johnson brought me in the Ron. Can you drop those headphones on our friend Tim?
Yes.
Tim's going to get the headphones. Ron, you can still hear us all right?
Yes, I can.
Perfect.
All right.
Ron, you can still get on the mic. Tim's got his own mic. Ron Johnson, you got your own mic. As long as you can hear everybody. Hey, everybody. We've got the hardest working man in the craft beer business here. Just jumped on the mic now. We've got Tim Roberts, the head brewer from Yard Brewing Company. Yo, what's going on, man?
Oh, nothing much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, dude, thank you for being with us. Jeez.
Yeah.
What are you drinking?
A test batch of our new Cape of Good Hope beer.
Ooh, boy, did I have a couple of those before we started. That's the way to do things. Have a test batch. So that actually leads into something I wanted to ask you. So every year the Cape of Good Hope comes out, and it's usually a different hop bill every year. How do you decide what the hops are going to be for Cape every year?
Well, I mean, we're looking. It's a double IPA, and originally when the beer came out, we talked about literally changing the style of IPA every year. So we'd have a black one, maybe a Belgian one every year. But then we sort of settled in on a recipe where we wanted sort of an aggressive West Coast kind of beer. So it's pretty bitter. It's just shy of 10% alcohol. So it's strong. It's dry. It's uses Chico. But the hop bill does rotate every year.
Right.
So how do we figure out what hops? Well,
yes.
Kind of what we have is some of it, what we contract for, years in advance.
Right.
Because it's West Coast, we're looking for those more over the top, sort of aggressive, fruity kind of hops for it.
Right.
Can you talk about the name Cape of Good Hope? That refers to like the history of IPA, does it not?
Yeah. Well, the Cape of Good Hope's right at the bottom of Africa. So when England controlled India, I don't know how you want to take that word, but
it was the colony of England, right?
Yeah. So
right.
they were in charge, or they certainly had soldiers over there that certainly wanted beer because they were English. But when the English shipped their beer around the Cape of Good Hope to England, it rotted basically. So in order to preserve it, they made it a little bit stronger and a little hoppier. And so that's why we're calling our beer Cape of Good Hope, because of that kind of an honor of that heritage of the
That's
IPAs.
what India Pale Ale was for export from England to India,
Yep.
specifically for the soldiers. And this is kind of a nod to the journey, if you will.
Exactly.
Right.
And now, oddly enough, the English make super low alcohol IPAs, like 3% of IPAs. I don't know how that happened, but it's happened.
And the base, the foundation for the beers that are being produced here at Yards are English beers.
Yeah, well, I say we say English inspired, and that's true because we certainly use
inspired, right?
We certainly use a lot of American hops. I would say the majority of our beers have American hops, but it's sort of that care and looking for the balance is what I take about it. And balance and not really necessarily relying on aggressive amounts of alcohol, which a lot of people that don't know beer think of English beer as strong and thick.
Right.
That's not true at all.
Right. One of the things we always talk about is the art. We feel the art is in the balance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can interpret things any way you will, but if your hops are off the charts, or if it's over the top sweet, or your alcohol's 12% and the flavor's not going to deliver, then something's out of balance.
I mean, I probably think everyone I work with gets tired of hearing me talk about balance, because I think that's what it's all about. Even in a double IPA, I mean, it's just shy of 10%. It's super dry. It is bitter, but it's not overly bitter. It's not a tongue scraper. You can actually drink it, and there still is some malt backbone to it.
That's true. It's one of the most balanced double IPAs that I think we've ever had, and a testament to that is our buddy Richard down here, who's being very quiet.
Yep.
He's a gentleman.
Hi, Richard.
He's a gentleman, Tim, that knows absolutely nothing about beer. So the reason we do this podcast is because Rob and I have been in the beer business for
you don't know anything about beer?
20-some years.
Very little.
Richard knows zero, but Richard worked for a radio station, so this is why we sound sort of legit. We kind of have that legitimacy, but he does not like IPAs. So we started him back in September drinking IPA with Cape of Good Hope. That was the first IPA back at the dinner show.
Yep.
That was the first IPA that he drank and was like, this is unfriggin' believable.
Also got me incredibly drunk before we even started the first one. I had mess.
He was unaware of the alcohol content until we...
How was your back pain after you drank it?
Great.
Because he had other things floating around too.
We actually blew the wine people away with the Cape of Good Hope.
Right.
We paired it with the goat tostada.
Right.
If I remember correctly. And wine people were like, wow, I'm going beer. I can't believe it.
We took out a $300, what was that Spanish wine we drank? A Rioja, yeah.
Yeah, so we did a beer dinner that was like, because I used to work at Joe Canals in West Effort, so I'm still very tight with the wine buyers there. So we did a beer dinner with them at one of their houses.
Oh, cool.
And we had a chef come in, and he cooked an entire goat.
Oh, nice.
And we did four courses, and we paired beer, and they paired wine, and we just put mics all over the table and had people, wine people and beer people, talk about why they paired their wine with it and why we paired the beer with it. And the Cape of Good Hope actually beat a $300 bottle of wine for the coach.
1969 wine.
Yeah, 1969 wine.
We did a good job on that one.
It
Sounds
was
like we should jack that price up.
Well, and that's the other thing. For the price point on that beer is awesome for what you're getting.
I think so. I mean, I won't put in any names, but there's those really, really expensive beers from within America, $60, $80 cases, and I think Cape's a good value.
They may or may not be from the West Coast. I think I know what you're talking about, but you guys stand right up to those beers, and being on the East Coast, there's a lot of talk about consumers on the East Coast just saying, East Coast guys just can't make an IPA that stands up to the West Coast IPAs. But I think that one really does quiet those people.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it was a show them kind of intent, but we wanted to show them that we could also do that style of beer. And we're about to be under a lot of scrutiny with the Craft Brewers Conference, and it'll be interesting to drink those beers with those people that make those beers we're all talking about.
Go ahead, Richard.
There really is an East Coast versus West Coast battle going on in beer?
It's not a battle like a rap battle.
No.
It's not like a Tupac versus Biggie situation.
Yeah,
not yet. Not yet. But there is definitely East Coast IPAs generally have a tendency to be more malt forward. Not malt forward, but malt based. As West Coast IPAs are going to be more dank, more citrusy, super, super bright, almost
malt deficient.
And malt deficient, as Ron Johnson says.
More hop forward.
More hop forward, yeah. So in my opinion,
there you go.
Being from the East Coast,
I'll start the rivalry if he won't.
The East Coast IPAs are a little more balanced, and you seem to like East Coast IPAs a little more, Richard.
Yep. So truer to style.
Very true to style.
Correct.
Yeah. Right? True to style.
Well,
East Coast.
It's a made-up style, right?
Right, it is a style.
And probably the guys on the West Coast made it up, so maybe it's just our interpretation of that.
Well, the
I hear
style
a
of
buzz
IPA in general.
Something's buzzing. I don't know what it is.
It might be in the room. It's the jukebox.
Oh, okay. So the funny thing is, we're talking about made-up styles. I just heard one recently that I'm very curious what your thoughts are on this style that was just recently made up. Do you know about this? You will. I just heard something called New England style IPA. Are you guys aware of this?
Yeah, I've just been hearing a lot about it too.
Is that a thing?
It apparently is the thing, and what I've heard about it, or my understanding of it, is that they're non-fruity hops that they use. They're more earthy, dank hops. I think is the word you used.
Okay.
And I think someone tried to convince me that unfiltered is part of it.
Well, that's interesting also because we talked earlier today about the brewing process, and you were very adamant about the filtration, and I kept my mouth shut because I was going to ask you a couple questions at that point, but I was like, we'll just save it. That seems to be a trend that's happening right now, is this unfiltered orange juicy consistency IPA that I will say, flavor-wise, I'm okay with, but you had a great point earlier, Tim, when you said we drink with our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see that come across in a glass, the first thing I think of is something's wrong.
I do, and is it a trend or is it just something that never stopped? Because in a lot of ways, our industry started with home brewers who obviously don't filter, and probably because of that, they don't take it so seriously. A lot of those guys that ended up starting a lot of breweries that are now the big breweries around.
Right.
So I don't know if it's something that hasn't changed or has it gotten worse. In my opinion, it has.
Right.
I think
agree.
you see more milkshakes going over the bar than you used to.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's a good way.
Yeah,
milkshakes. If you could consider me a professional, I think me and the professionals and I, for the most part, look at the filtration and the presentation of the beer as part of the craft and the art of doing it, and it's all part of the same thing. And I think on that tour I had mentioned about doing it conscientiously, where I think people that want to convince other people that you should not filter a beer want to say that you're going to strip all the flavor out of it. And I think you just need to do it in a good way. And then I think on the other end of this, on the same subject but sort of another tangent, is that a lot of people's beers are going cloudy over time, which is also a function of how you're treating it in the brew house.
Oh, wow.
And or in filtration, or what you're leaving in the beer. And so even if some of these beers are bottled bright, say on the West Coast, now that everyone's knocking the West Coast, by the time we get it, sometimes it's hazy.
Right. Go ahead, Dan.
On that point, I wanted to ask about Clarex.
Yep.
And that is used to sort of like knock the stuff out of the beer.
Well, it's meant to break one of the chemical bonds that stop some of those chemicals from, or
proteins, if you will. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Proteins. Yeah, I know. It's chemicals doesn't sound good. I was trying to catch myself.
Right.
From coming together in the bottle over time.
And that kind of contributes to haze, though.
Yeah.
So, and you guys are one of the ones that use Clarex to stop that.
Yeah, our secret's out.
It's been out for a while.
Yeah.
But it works, though. But I agree with what you're saying about when that beer comes across the bar, the first thing you're looking at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if it comes across and it looks like you use the term milkshake, if it looks like a milkshake, you're already wondering, in my head, I'm looking at it going, something's a little askew here, and I don't know what it is. But then you drink it, it's got that consistency of kind of like an orange juice.
Yep.
But the hop profile is monstrously dank and citrusy. and there's not a whole lot of malt backbone to it.
Well, it's also, I mean, sometimes there's literally hops in the beer. You know what I mean? So that's obviously, it's easy to make a hoppy beer with hops in the glass.
Right.
But it's also, to me, it also changes the palate of the beer, having all the hops in the glass and the yeast in the glass.
Yeah.
And mostly in a way I don't like. I mean, it's in the same way all brewers are obsessed with foam. It's only for really appearance.
Right.
But I don't want to drink beer that looks like apple juice.
True. No, none of us do. As far as non-yards beers, is there anything that you've been sipping on recently that has blown your skirt up that you can say, wow, that's really awesome?
Well, I'm a big lover of, in my opinion, beer should be local because beer almost exclusively should be fresh. And so there's certainly great breweries around here. I'm from outside of Harrisburg, so Trogs is my hometown beer.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I was just up there looking at some equipment. Some of the beers were great. And I was just out in Oregon, so now let's give the West Coast a plug. I went to Freem. I don't know if you guys know Freem.
We don't?
I do not. No.
It's P-F-R-E-M. And it was a relatively small brewery right down the street from Full Sail.
Okay.
So Full Sail's what? I don't know, 300, 400,000 barrels a year?
Yeah.
I think Freem did maybe 5,000 barrels last year.
Wow.
And we're maybe a 3-year-old brewery. But they had a president and owner that took quality very seriously, and a really, really good brewmaster, Gavin something or other.
Okay.
Who was just really outstanding. Every beer across the board was really, really nice. Belgian styles, lager styles, ales. It was just really, really beautiful beer. It had been a while since I've been really, really blown away like that.
That's awesome. That actually factors into another question I had. Way down here, is there a brewery that we don't know about yet that we should know about, and that qualifies?
Yeah.
That definitely qualifies. What were you doing out in Oregon?
Selecting hops.
Selecting hops.
Yeah.
That is pretty awesome, man.
Oh, yeah.
Ron Johnson wants to institute an incentive for Hunterdon where whoever sells the most yards is going to go out and do some hop selecting with you.
It's funny. We're actually now hiring new reps in New Jersey. So if anybody out there is listening, looking for a Southern Jersey rep.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Ron's boss, the Rick.
The Rick. If you're looking for a job,
Ron Johnson's fired.
It's a low bar, really. I mean, I'm sure you can just...
It's a low bar.
Poor Ron Johnson. Poor Ron Johnson.
Are you looking for a real go-getter? Because I know a real go-getter who's a job.
You stay right over there. You stay right over there. I'm going to go back in time a little bit, and I told you earlier that I was... There he goes. Ron Johnson, he's defending himself.
He doesn't know he's fired yet.
He doesn't know. We'll break the news to him. We'll break the news to him on the next segment. He'll know.
We'll tell him. Let him hear about it.
We'll tell him that you said.
Okay.
So you don't have to do it. Me and Rob will take care of it.
Yep.
So in a previous lifetime, Tim, you were employed by Dock Street.
Right.
And Rob and I find it interesting that there's a lot of current people that are shaping the landscape of Philly beer that came from Samuel Adams Brew Pub and Dock Street. Mm-hmm. And you were on the ground floor of that with Chris LaPierre, who we just had on recently at Band of Brewers. Band of Brewers, yeah. And he mentioned that he was at Dock Street. So I saw last night while I was Googling you. I was stalking you, son. That's not last night.
All those nudes are very tasteful, though.
Well, I got to tell you.
Did Ron Johnson paint them?
I got to tell you.
Is that where they came from?
Oh boy! Did you get to brew there, or were you running tables? What were you doing at Dock Street?
No, I brewed there. I moved to Philadelphia for the job, and I started waiting tables and bartending eventually in order to get that job. So
awesome.
I volunteered in the brewery one day a week for a while, and then eventually, I was able to get a paid position.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's something that aspiring guys that are homebrewing in their garage right now, I think, kind of miss that step. Mm-hmm. Where they think that they need to, they think that they're making such awesome beer, and all of their friends and their coworkers are fawning over the things they're making, but they don't have that real production brewery experience that I think is necessary to be able to jump into a spot where you are.
I think everyone needs to learn from someone, and I think it's better than learning from a book, and I think putting your hands on everything is
100%.
To me, a better way to do it than just trying to ask questions on the internet or maybe just try to read something about it. I think you need tutelage or mentorship to do it well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. When you were brewing for Dock Street, and this was back in the day when Rob and I and Richard and Dan were running around playing music in bands, and we would live on Dock Street beer.
Oh, man.
Yeah. We lived on it.
What year are we talking about?
I'm going to say mid to late 90s-ish.
Yeah, I started there in 97.
Yeah, I was going to say
there in 98,
96, 97, 98, 99.
Uh-huh.
Those
I moved,
years.
I moved into Philadelphia in 98.
Those-
of 98.
what was
I
that,
was
Dock
there for about
Street
2
Amber?
years.
So what was your go-to Dock Street beer back then?
I mean, I haven't really changed beer taste too much. So, I mean, I love the Pilsner, and we used to have the Pilsner that was brewed at FX Matt, which was great. And then the local version also was really, really nice. I loved that. They brewed, I think they were famous for brewing something like 50, 60 styles of beer a year, so there was a million of them.
There was, but there was two that Rob and I remember very vividly, and I can remember the labels, and I remember it being a huge part of our development in this world. Was that Pilsner,
Doppelbock?
the Bohemian Pilsner, was out of this world.
Yeah, yeah.
He gave me a love for Pilsner, and it was through that Pilsner that I discovered Prima Pils, which I have a cat at home named Prima Pils. It runs deep.
A first and last name.
Yes. How many cats have a first and last name? And that
Is
goddamn
his middle name Bill?
not yet. And that Illuminator.
The Illuminator.
Yeah, the Doppelbock, right?
Yes,
Yeah, it was great.
Doppelbock. My God.
Yep.
We lived on that. So the summer, we were drinking the Pilsner, and then once October, November hit, it was all Illuminator, and that's what we lived on forever. It was just, there wasn't a whole lot to drink back then.
And it was weird that they did lagers back then.
It was
too.
so
even
strange.
more rare.
It doesn't make any sense. But boy, did we love it. Richard, what do you got?
And it's still an amazing time when you would just hand me a beer. I go, wait, shut up and drink it.
Shut up and drink it.
Shut up and drink it.
It's been 20 years. Nothing's changed.
Nothing's
really.
changed, right.
I still tell you, just shut up and drink it. Richard, as a man that doesn't know a whole lot about a whole lot of things, you're drinking the Irish Stout in front of you.
I know I love stouts.
Well, you had mentioned
I
that.
do.
Is there anything in particular about that stout that you're excited about?
Yeah, it's
Considering
not,
the man that makes it is sitting 2 seats down from
It's
you.
actually not
On
overly
the hot seat.
sweet. There's been a lot of really, really chocolatey, almost sweet, and they're nice, and I like those.
They make that too, Richard. So
You
be
like
careful.
that.
They do, and I like that. But this is definitely a nice change of pace. This reminds me, for me, I guess a standard stout sounds wrong. There's no nice way to say that.
It's like a dry Irish stout. Tim, right?
You're drinking Ma Kelly's, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's also made with a little bit of chocolate and a little bit of coffee.
right. I like the coffee. It has a nice bitter,
A little bit of
thing
a
that I like.
bitterness to it, right?
And then the
Yeah.
malted oats sort of round it out a little bit. I mean, it's uncharacteristic of us and me necessarily that there's so many ingredients in there, but I think it works out. It's pretty balanced and pretty subtle.
Did you use any oatmeal on that one?
We used flaked oats.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. We used malted oats.
Oh,
malted
did you? All right.
Flaked oats are more common in brewing, but there's at least, I think there's only one manufacturer that I know that actually malts oats, and it's a really, really nice ingredient that I've been using for a long time.
Yeah, I find it gives the body like a real nice velvety feel, the oats. They don't impart so much flavor. You're not
Nope.
going to taste it and go, oh, this beer is made with oatmeal. But you're going to be able to detect that real soft, rounded, velvety flavor that the oatmeal imparts, which I love. Go ahead.
And without feeling like a motor oil.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you definitely don't want the motor
We brewed a
oil.
beer here once on our little system also. What's it? The oat beer? What was it called?
The oat soda?
Oat soda?
Or is it the brown ale?
Nah, with the tons of malted oats. We brewed like about a 3.5% beer with a ton of malted oats, like as much as you could possibly use. And then you could really, really taste the oats. It was nice.
Oh,
it was
wow.
a great beer, yeah.
That's
Underrated
awesome.
ingredient.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Rob.
I was going to just ask a question on one of the things that you had on here that I thought was interesting.
Good point.
The Philly Pale Ale. Has that changed at all in the brewing process in the last 2 or 3 years? Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you this question was because when we were talking earlier and you were bringing us through the whole filtration aspect of everything, I wanted to ask you then, but I felt because we had it in our preparation to talk to you about on here, is there anything that's changed with the filtration on that beer? Because I feel like it's cleaner, it's crisper.
I feel like it's gone through an evolution in the past.
It's almost gone through
I'm
an
gonna say
evolution in the last 2 or 3 years.
We don't ever change process or ingredients in any way.
He's always saying that because the sales guy is saying
That's what the sales guy wants to hear. But in reality, the recipes are more dynamic than they want to know. And they are more dynamic because
my
they're
job's done
agricultural ingredients. And
Right.
they change.
But definitely, we've been drinking Philly Pale for 20 years.
Yep.
You know, so
Well, I mean, certainly that beer changed a lot over 20
Of
years.
course,
20 years
absolutely.
ago. In fact, the guy that came up with the first recipe for Philly Pale modeled after my first recipe at Dock Street that I brewed
Wow.
with.
Okay.
Josh Irvine used to be the head brewer for Yards, and that's when it started.
Okay.
And then Tom wanted to change it, and it became the beer that it is today, sort of.
Okay.
But then we changed brewing system, so then it's fundamentally
Right.
going to change. And I was given, and Tom and I, of course, talk about this, and Rick, about how the beer should be and how we want it to be.
Gotcha.
And so, I mean, there was a real absolute evolution. As in terms of the past few years, we replaced our filter 3 years ago. It might have affected the clarity just a little bit, but I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think we've made any better changes, but I am a big believer. And in my world, everyone talks about consistency, and so do I, and flavor matching, and I think that's important when you get a new brew house.
Yeah.
But I am always striving to make the beer better rather than keep it exactly the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Wow.
Man, as he turned and the big smile he gave the Rick. He gave the Rick a huge cheese. What do you got, Dan?
I'd like to ask about my favorite beer from Yards is Saison.
Okay.
And I
It's on
drink it
tap
all
right now.
I drink it all summer. It's like, is it kind of a seasonal for you guys? Is that correct? Or
Yeah.
Okay, so not a lot of guys are doing Saison as a seasonal. How did that come about? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, it came about before my time, and it's another one in our last brewery. It was a very, very different beer, and it became, in a lot of ways, a Belgian white. But so when I started with Yards 8 years ago, Tom and I wanted to make it more of a traditional style without being Saison du Pot, which I'm certainly not knocking. I love that beer, and
Love
it
it.
is a special thing that, you know, it's almost impossible to emulate. So
Right.
ours is maybe a little bit more approachable Saison, you know, without trying to dumb it down. But it's a dry beer, but certainly not as dry as Saison du Pont. And it's also spiced with a little bit of grains of paradise.
Very spicy, very peppery. There's a hint of black pepper to that one too.
Yeah.
Very clean finish. That's what you want in your Saison. That's one of my favorite seasonals. Like you said,
Yeah.
Dan, that's one that I go to all summer
There's
long.
enough alcohol in it too. A lot of the summer beers are low ABV.
Yeah, low ABV,
And I'm a big guy. I can't stand that low ABV shit, man.
I agree
I need
with
some
that.
alcohol in my beer. So that's why I love the Yard Saison. The flavor is out of sight, and it's got
great.
a good amount of alcohol in it for a summertime
great.
beer.
But still drinkable. I mean, that was one of our big goals,
Oh,
not to
for
have it
sure.
overwhelming.
So some logistical questions while we have the ear of you two gentlemen. So you got there. It's no secret that you guys have been talking about expanding. So there's two things I wanted to touch on real fast as far as that goes. Richard, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
What the hell is going on down there?
I'm a little prickly.
You're prickly?
Verklempt?
How does that happen?
You're a little-
I see him over there like he just touched a hot stove. He's shaking his hand.
I turned this way,
Okay.
and then
It's so strange.
it is. It's how a pinched nerve works, I guess.
Yeah,
You are a
Should have
delight.
took that muscle relaxer.
He was actually
Should've
getting a
took the
massage at
muscle
the time.
This will be a very different show.
Listen, it's true. You can get massages right around the corner here.
Well, guess I'm taking a muscle.
We are in
And
a
something
good
for your
area.
back too. Yeah.
We are a good area for that. So what I was curious
We
about
can reopen Flirt across the street.
is you guys are looking to expand, and just from the outside looking in, it appears there's a giant building next door. I know you guys keep moving horizontally. Is there a reason why that is not an option?
Think it's an option?
Is it an option?
Sure.
So that's on the table?
Sure.
Oh, Jesus. I know when I use the answer sure to a question, what the fuck?
You're talking about all this block, right?
I mean, this could very well easily be your block.
Yeah, it could be.
It could be. I mean, that could be.
Yard
That's
Street.
an ideal world, I think, yeah.
And Richard's aunt could be
You'd
his
really
uncle.
like to see that sunrise come up again, wouldn't you, Tim?
Yeah, I know, right?
And what Rob's referring to is when we were in the brew house earlier, we were looking at it's the greatest view. You could stand up on the catwalk where they dump all the hops in, and you could see the Philly skyline on one side through the windows, and on the other side you can see 4 stainless steel tanks that Tim said, well, on the other side of those tanks,
At one time.
you could see the sunrise.
And I remember that
over the
time.
Delaware.
Over the Delaware.
But
Yeah.
you can't see that anymore because the tanks are blocking it. However, if you guys expanded that other building, who knows? You can still see the sunrise.
Yeah,
Might be able.
yeah.
I think that's good enough reason to stay here.
I think it's a great
Great.
reason to stay
No,
here.
I don't think
it's not a good enough reason. See? So we're piecing what we've learned when we had Kovaleski on, and now we've got Tim and the Rick on. We have to piece together the context clues that we're given. So he said, not a good enough reason. Richard, remember that.
Or Kovaleski was cagey.
He was cagey. He was a cagey son of a bitch, man.
He actually apologized to us later. He sent me an email about 3 days later. He's like, hey, man, I feel real bad. There was a lot going on that day.
Yeah, right.
And I really wanted to tell you guys what was happening, but legally I couldn't say anything until Tuesday, and it happened to be a Friday. And I was like, dude, we're just happy to have you. We don't need you to break news on our podcast.
Although
We're
he
just happy
all
to
but
have you
did.
sit there. But I mean, when you listen back to it, had he just given us like an extended wink, we would have known, like, oh yeah, they're selling tomorrow. We would have known that. The other
I can safely say I'm not going to have that kind of bomb.
no, thank God. We're not looking for that. We're not looking for that from you. But the other ridiculous rumor that I heard, and being a Jersey guy and living on the doorstep of Camden. I'm looking for Camden to be a destination to help my neighborhood
I heard
out
the
a
River
little bit.
Sharks left.
They did.
Yeah, folded.
What are they going to do with that stadium?
Context clues, boys. Context clues, boys. So I have heard a rumor that there was maybe not two eyes, but at least an eye on Camden. Is that a thing of any sort that we could even? It doesn't have to be a yes or no. Like, I just heard the rumor.
How's the sunrise in Camden?
It's actually pretty friggin' awesome.
Goes the other way, though.
It goes the other way. Our sunsets. I got to tell you, like, Philly's great, but the sunsets, we have the view on our side. Yeah. Like, the view from where we are, like that river stage, that Camden Waterfront Park, where they have the XBN Fest, is amazing to watch the sun fall behind the buildings. So that might be a selling point if we're talking about.
There's a favorable tax situation in Camden.
There's a favorable tax situation in
Land
Camden.
Is cheap.
There's a giant
That's been mentioned before.
Giant empty stadium.
That's true.
There's a concert venue up the block. I mean, it's very.
I gotta say, I'm very upset about that empty
rolling in his
stadium.
grave right now if he could
What'd you
hear.
say?
Trevor would be freaking out right now. If he,
Well, he's going to hear this eventually.
He's
No, he won't hear this. He doesn't know that we exist. He doesn't know that we exist. But I will say, as Jersey people, and especially me, that I can see Camden from my front step. It would be friggin' awesome if I could look out my front door and see you fucks brewing beer out there. That would be awesome, man. So let's hope that that's a thing.
well, the goal, we'll always have a brewery in Philadelphia, one way or the
Yes,
other.
that's awesome,
we
too.
would never leave Philadelphia.
Absolutely not. And
If we were to
wouldn't-
open a second location, other areas would be on the table.
Well, see, now you just brought up an interesting thing.
Go ahead.
Because I kind of said this to him right before we started. So me and him just got back from San Diego. We were in San Diego Monday, Tuesday, flew back Wednesday. We were actually with a buddy of yours because we went out to see Ballast Point.
Paul?
We were having
I love
Paul the whole time. And
Paul Havlin.
He was talking about you.
He likes
and we were
Rush
like,
too
yeah,
much, though.
Oh, yeah. He had us
Boy-
listen. He made me put Rush
I hope
on.
he listens to this.
On the bus as we were rolling around.
I
But
love Paul.
I was
best.
thinking,
Weird butt buddy crush on him.
He's awesome.
I was thinking as we were rolling around, I didn't realize they had all these different locations where they're brewing. And they had 4 locations.
There's 4 locations
that we
within
went to,
like
Tim,
15
while we were
miles.
out there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and they're all within like 15, 20 miles. And in the one location, they only brew Sculpin. Did you pick up on that?
I
when
did
we were
pick
in
up
there?
on that. Yep.
So
Which one do they only brew grapefruit Sculpin in?
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
But I was curious, and I said to Ron, like when we sat down, were you guys thinking about expanding or open up? Why not just open up a different location and keep this location?
Absolutely.
Because that's real complicated. It's not. I mean, from my perspective, so we have a lot of old equipment and we really made it work, and our brewers are really, really talented. It's not automated at all, so that requires a lot of attention.
Gotcha.
And we're about to buy all this really, really fancy stuff, and I would really like all of the beer to be made on that really, really fancy
In one
stuff.
spot.
To use that really, really, really fancy stuff as a tool to make good beer.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think they're going to buy this automated. I don't know about a lot of people, but some people picture an automated brew house as, you just plug in your numbers and it makes you beer.
Right.
And it does. It does make you beer, but you're in control of the parameters and you're using that as a tool.
Yeah, that's great. Go ahead, Dan.
I wanted to ask about the beers of the Revolution.
You mean the ales?
The ales of the Revolution. Yes.
Second person who stole my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So my favorite is General Washington.
Okay.
But how did that come about? Like, they're based on actual recipes used by these guys, or how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, absolutely. Those two R's, and certainly, even at least from my perspective, being a process kind of guy, they use a lot of techniques that they used to use. So they didn't think of hops as the only potential spice for beer, and they didn't think of malt sugars as the only potential sugar source. So, for example, in the porter, we use molasses, which is the sugar source for the yeast, and in our spruce ale, we use spruce tips, like legitimately spruce tips as a flavor or spice.
It's awesome.
Did they know about yeast really back then in the 17th century and 18th century?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't know what we know, and Pasteur sort of, I think, nailed a lot of that down, but they certainly knew what that stuff did. They used to call it God is good. They knew what happened.
Something was happening, but didn't know who to blame.
Yeah.
So to Tim's point earlier that he talked about, I mean, not that he talked about it on here, but mentioned water quality and being so good in Philadelphia.
Yep.
George Washington actually preferred porters brewed in Philadelphia. His favorite style beer was porters made in Philadelphia.
Wow.
So it's kind of a throwback to that as well.
It's pretty awesome.
I mean, the first porters in the United States were brewed in Philadelphia, and I think that's part of the tradition that we're trying to carry on.
Yes.
That's awesome.
You're so smart.
Tim, what's your least favorite trend in the industry right now? I know what mine is. And I've said it a million times, and you're allowed to say it.
Well, what's yours? Let's hear yours first.
Well, everyone knows mine's
Show
root
me
beer.
yours. I'll show you mine.
What is it?
Root beer.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, I was going to say pumpkin ales, but
I don't even think
ales.
of that as the beer trend.
It's just
I don't know.
unfortunate that they tag it. They tag their root beers as being craft and handmade and artisanal, and they're calling it all of that. All of those fun buzzwords that they like to throw around, they throw it on the root beer, and then the retailers are then, Rick, you see it. The retailers are then throwing those root beers in cold box doors with craft beer, and it's maddening.
Yeah.
It's kind of daunting. I never thought it was going to grow to be what it was now.
I didn't either.
Especially to see the Henrys and the new ginger ales and the cream. I mean, there's about 60 flavors of soda, so I can only imagine how long this could go for.
They're taking up entire cold box doors.
Yeah.
In
I mean, if they
stores.
do Black Cherry Wishniak, then
I might think about it.
I mean, Dr. Pepper and Black Cherry Wishniak. Then I mean, I'm all for it.
Frank's
But
Black Cherry
to
Wishniak,
just start
that's
to
old
root
school.
beer. I mean,
Rick
come on,
pulled it
anybody
out.
can do a root beer. Black Cherry
Yeah,
Wishniak.
I'm with you.
I mean,
I hate to say you predicted it last summer, but you did. I actually remember sitting in the poorhouse and you saying it's bad now, but wait till the second wave kicks in when people start.
Here we are.
Everybody else jumps on the
commercials have
bandwagon.
started and everything.
Yeah, now there's commercials. But somehow we've gotten away from what Tim's least favorite trend in the business is.
And that's the important
What's Rick's least favorite trend?
I would say maybe the blurring of seasonals.
That's
I
a
think
good
it's,
one.
I think it's kind of upsetting to see a certain seasonals forgotten about. I think some really great beers come out in the spring and summer, and I think they're kind of forgotten about because the fall beers are starting to come out and they're kind of forgotten about. And then it's just this trend that, you know, before you know it, summer beers are out in January, and you lose all the really great imperial stouts that can come out. And I think everybody just needs to slow it
that's a good
down
point.
and just
Yeah,
bring
that's
it
a really
back
good
to.
one, yeah. That is a really good point.
You think last year was the absolute height of, or the worst that pumpkin can get?
It's the worst that it's. Yeah.
It's the worst.
I think that'll be the worst year.
Well, I mean,
Pumpkin's Waterloo.
speaking to wholesalers who are, they all got stuck with it. They're all a little. It's actually hurting the industry as a whole because now wholesalers are pulling back and saying, I don't want any more of your seasonal because we can't sell it, and it's because it's reflective upon, you know, too much beer sitting on the floor, and, you know, people want to jam beer down. People start saying you have to sell 200, you have to sell 5,000 cases of this, and it's going to hurt breweries, especially breweries getting into it who wanted to start with seasonals. They won't be able to sell their beers to the wholesaler because say we're good, we don't need it, just sell me this. It's a little upsetting. I think it just needs to slow down a little bit.
I agree.
You guys are right. It starts with the pumpkin, and it's kind of it's working backwards from there.
Yeah. And there's some breweries that make fabulous pumpkin. It just
there's
needs
8,000
to.
of them at the liquor store, though.
Yeah, I mean, when you have something on the floor in July, you're really getting away from all the really great beers that are out in summer. You know, it's
very true.
And then
Point,
the problem is people have one in the summer, like I'm done, and it comes September when they're supposed to be buying. They're like, I had it in July.
Had it in July.
Well, and Steve Mashington points out, you can't harvest pumpkins in July.
But you
No,
cannot-
sir. Certainly can't.
That's a pretty good point.
But it actually runs to the point. It runs as deep to the point that there's still plenty of pumpkin beer on the shelves
there are.
today. Yep. Which I walk into these stores and I start getting anxiety because I'm like, holy shit. And then you talk to the buyer and he's like, oh, I got to move through these pumpkins.
Well,
And they
especially if you
ask
know
me-
they're coming out in July, so now they're starting in a
so now they're
9-month-old beer.
And then they ask me, well, what do you suggest I do? And I'm like,
Send it back.
I do tell them to send it back. And then they're like, well, the wholesaler won't take it. I'm like, well, you gotta flex your muscle a little bit and demand that they get rid of it.
You just tell them they'll never buy their beer again. They'll come real fast.
Yeah, they'll make it happen. You just got to say the right things. And I try to tell these guys, like, you
I would never say that to my wholesalers.
never,
I
never,
promise.
ever have you, or would you
Any
ever?
wholesaler who's listening, I would never say that.
No, you're right about that. But I mean, it is an epidemic, and if the pumpkin beers sit on the shelves, and that slows down the winter beers, and then the winter beers, then, as you mentioned, Rick, like I used to look forward to January, February when the imperial stouts would come out.
They were great.
We don't see that anymore. Go ahead, Rob.
I do want you to answer that question.
Thank you. What color is this guy today?
But I am going to say this, since we're on the topic of seasonals, and you guys just finished up one because Saison's getting ready to come out. I'm really going to ask you about the Golden Hop because I really love that beer.
Loved it.
And it was very, very interesting for you guys. I really felt that it turned the corner a little bit on some of the stuff that we've been used to from you guys. And I absolutely loved it. But the one thing I found interesting is the time of year that it came out. because it almost feels like it's something where you could have replaced the Saison with it, not had Saison this summer, or done that, or had no. But I'm just saying it's a very light,
he actually
very
wrote a
crisp
letter to
beer,
us.
very crisp beer, and I thought it was very, very different from the normal realm of seasonals for you guys. And I was just interested in some of the stuff like that happened and how that beer came about, because I love it.
Well, that beer came about because of actually Rick, which is an odd story. Well, it's no odder than Rick, but we brewed it actually for him.
What did you say? He said it was odd because it was.
You don't have to whisper in my ear. You can just speak
He
loud.
said it was.
I said it's no odder than Rick how that beer came about.
Oh, why? Because it's my beer?
Yeah, it's actually Rick's beer, which is actually pretty convenient that he's sitting here. But we brewed it for
really?
him and his wife Ariane when they got married. I think Rick liked a lot of the aspects of that beer, and maybe Rick. I mean, we brewed it for you. So
we sat down and we decided So it used to be called The Rick Takes a Wife. My wife named it, not me.
Oh, shit, I remember that.
See,
I remember reading about that and seeing it around and hearing about it, yes.
So it started off as I wanted an IPA for the wedding, and she likes Belgian beer, so I thought, well, let's make a Belgian IPA. So we used Taconic yeast to really keep it dry, to let the hop shine, but it really technically gave it that Belgian character, and it gave it a really crisp, clean flavor. It went really bright and citrusy with the hops. We were really excited about the beer, and we used it for Beer Week. And then everybody seemed to like it for Beer Week, so it became Golden Hop, and these guys really took it, stepped it up to the next level.
It's
The breweries and
phenomenal, too.
everything.
I mean, I killed, at my house, me and my wife literally crushed 2 sixths of that on the, on the kegerator.
Appreciate it.
We loved it.
It's awesome stuff.
Thank you.
No problem. It's awesome stuff.
The January release, sitting in, if you could sit in a conference room with 8 people with 8 different opinions on release schedules, it's kind of
We're bringing
kind of daunting.
sunshine to January.
I'm sorry?
We're bringing sunshine to January.
Well, that was my
Well, that
point.
was the one thing I liked about it. It was a very different seasonal for that time of year, and that's one of the things that I thought was great about it.
So you like that aspect of it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I did.
Yeah, because
Me too.
it kind of stood out on the shelves and on the tap handles. It was something that you were like, well, that's an odd decision for January. Let me try it. And the addition of the Belgian yeast, I think, was spot on.
Yeah.
I guess as a non-beer guy,
That's you.
I'm mystified by the seasonal thing because I don't drink beer that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll drink a stout in June and drink a Belgian
What's
in
the seasonal
Me
January.
too. I'm not
right
quite
now.
as seasonal as that either. It doesn't really bother me so much. I
Right.
agree.
It's just so strange here. It seems so important to everybody else. Though.
What kind of guy are you?
I'm a strange fella.
Rick, you just opened a very bad door.
I'm very open to a lot of things.
It's a whole other show.
So if you're just tuning into this podcast,
We are definitely talking about beer.
we're still talking about alcohol.
Yes, exactly.
Do you drink?
I do. I mean, they
What
got
do you
me.
drink?
I love stouts.
Okay.
I love
like liquor or wine?
I was a wine guy.
Okay,
I still
that's
am.
cool.
I mean, I love
That's
wine too.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I love wine. But they got me in the craft beer world, so I've kind of settled into a Belgian and stout life.
Okay.
And I like sours, but you don't see
Okay.
it that often. But
Very nice.
odd ones are usually my thing. And you,
That's
wow, that
the
was
truth.
right, huh?
You've settled in, but you've settled into some IPAs also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you've definitely turned a corner, which will happen.
Yeah, well, but I think we're talking about that. Either my palate developed and or the IPAs got better and more balanced because there was a whole boatload of IPAs we were drinking that were just, to me, undrinkable. I didn't get it.
You still are.
That's very cool. I believe that.
I'm going to use our context clues, and I think that is Tim's least favorite trend happening right now.
Yeah, you're pretty good at this, getting away from the question. Then.
I just have to
Very
admit,
evasive.
he's evasive. He's a politician. He's running for office.
So let's all stare at him and let's not speak until Tim answers.
So now that I'm backed into a corner, I'll say the worst trend in beer is bad beer out there.
There he is. There he is.
So I think there's some beer that's inconsistent out there. I think there's some people that don't know what they're doing out there. And I think we should all get together and help those people because it's only making all of us look bad.
Yeah. Is that something you think is going to fix itself, or do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better?
I think it's going to fix itself with the market just like it did in the late 90s. And I think the consumer
where we're
these
at.
days...
That's how me and you feel.
I think the consumer these days is far more savvy than it was now. And the
Yep.
big fear back then and what I think actually happened back then is people had some of these beers that were not well made. You know, and certainly some of the beers that I put out back then were not well made at all. And they thought that represented craft beer. And then I don't like microbrew beer. And I think that is hopefully going to be less of an impact, but I think there's going to be some impact by this.
Speaking of something you just mentioned, I had on my little list of bullet points here. Has there ever been anything you've made that on paper you were like, this is going to be fucking awesome, and you made it and you tried it and it just kind of was like,
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Like trial and error.
I mean, if you're not trying, you're not falling down. If you're not falling down, you're not trying hard enough. Right. So there's definitely beer. We dump beer all the time.
Oh, I bet. I'm sure of it.
Why would you want to
You're
serve
saying
bad
you
beer?
bet because you think we can't
Well,
make
I mean, in order to you have to.
What do you think, Joe?
You have to crack some eggs to make an omelet.
Exactly.
It's just how it works.
Yep.
Philly Pale Ale still the flagship.
Yep.
Still running the show here.
Yep.
Love
Still
that.
our bestseller.
Yeah, still the best sellers. That's still in like the stadiums, and you can find it.
Yep.
Philly Stadium and all.
venue
what-
stadiums.
Yeah, Richard.
What's your most accessible beer? Like if you're trying to get non-craft people into
Brawler.
craft, Well, it's funny because my
Brawler.
wife drinks Brawler.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, she loves it.
My wife's favorite beer is Philly Pale, though.
Yeah?
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Who picks the music in the brewery on Brew Day?
The Brewers.
There's some good
Yeah,
music
that's
back
actually-
there this morning.
There's a lot of weird tastes back there. Luckily, there's some more metal guys back there now.
Well,
so there's a lot
One
more
of them
death
likes
metal
Garth
going on.
Brooks.
I
What's
know.
One of them likes Garth Brooks.
No.
One likes Garth Brooks, the other likes Cannibal Corpse. It's great.
Very bizarre. Well, we were back there earlier today for our tour, and and there wasn't any brewing or bottling going on, but I fully expected to hear metal. And we went back there, and those boys were packaging up variety packs. And I
Some
heard
funk going on
I heard
back there.
I heard the JBs.
Yep.
I heard a little Teddy P.
Yep.
I heard some Confunction, Richard.
Yeah. Wow.
They
Yeah.
were getting loose back there.
Yeah, they were.
They were getting loose back there. I really thought I was going to hear a little bit of metal, but I was
That's
very,
really disappointing.
The Rick is very upset.
Somebody's going to get fired.
I was very impressed when I got back there because I'm not so much a
So
metal
just-
guy. I'm learning about the metal. I'm the funk, soul, jazz freak.
That's
So is
fair.
Richard.
The
So I
whole
was like,
packaging department are a bunch of deadheads.
oh,
That's
wow.
not true. There's a
Jam
lot of
bands.
there's a lot of metalheads on the packaging department now. The bassist of Yeast Factory is on the.
That's
true.
And Yeast Factory is what?
Well, that's Rick's.
The metal band for Yards Brewing Company.
Absolutely.
Raising money for charity with death metal.
That's pretty awesome. So we actually did one of our last shows at Band of Brewers.
Yeah, I was really drunk. I had no idea you guys were there.
We were there. We were there. Everyone was very tanked.
Yeah,
we
that's
were hiding in the lobby, and
We actually had a
to the
nice
lobby.
setup, and we were impressed that nobody. Like, we were waiting for somebody to pull the plug on us and be like, "What are you guys doing here? You guys gotta go."
yeah. Falco.
Who the fuck are you guys?
Exactly what we thought was happening.
Lots of
Falco-
pointing.
Yeah, the people were pointing at us with furrowed brows, and I kept saying to Dan, "I'm like, oh, we're going to get unplugged any minute."
Yeah.
because Falco put
we
us
were
in
for
like
XPN.
we were. Yeah, it's what people thought. We were in this prime spot. Falco was like, set up over there. We were like, okay, all right. And so the whole day we were being pointed at. But we did a good couple shows from there.
Were you wearing clothes?
Yes.
Most of that one we were. Richard, yeah. Richard's always
into a lot of
Richard's
different
always
things.
the wild card, and we had Pat Pye on, which was always fun.
Yeah.
Pat Pye from the Chamonix,
He's a good dude.
And LaPerriere, obviously.
Chris
Yeah.
LaPierre. Yeah, Chris
LaPierre.
came on.
That's a good dude,
Yeah. Chris is a good
He
dude.
is a wonderful, wonderful man.
And you guys, Tim, you did a collaboration with LaPierre at some point when he was in Voorhees, right? At the Iron Hill.
Yeah, well, we used to brew a beer called Thomas Jefferson Ale also.
Right.
It was a different kind of recipe. Tom took a little more, did a little more formulation with the librarian at Monticello, but he and I did that old version of it.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That's very cool. And you also last year for Savor did an interesting beer that I never got to try. Rob, you got to try it.
I did.
It was called the Filtamore that you guys did with Heavy Seas in Baltimore.
Yep. Heavy Seas.
What was that? What was that beer? What was the inspiration for that?
I did it with Chris Leonard mostly. I mean, we did it as a brewery collaboration, obviously, but I worked with Chris Leonard, who used to work at, he used to work at the General Lafayette's Inn, so we've known each
wow.
other for a long, long time. And
Oh,
we both
wow.
kind of like British-inspired beers. I mean, there was some
Awesome.
Southern Hemisphere hops in it for sure, but it had a British inspiration. I mean, yeah, I liked it a lot.
Was it an IPA?
It was an English pale ale.
It was more like an
pale.
English pale. Yeah, I was just
Okay.
going to say that. It was
I
like,
kind of like the approach you guys took. I think one of the neatest things about that beer is when you go to Savor, everybody's got peppermint and crazy and sour, and
right.
all the buzzwords. But it was just, hey, here's a beer that you could drink, you can enjoy it, you walk around, you can drink a beer and not have to worry about
Right. It's pretty awesome.
You might even want a second one.
well, yeah.
That's awesome. Richard, what do you got?
I'm just wondering, how do these collaborations end up coming up? Is it literally like just you and a buddy sitting around going, it'd be a good idea, we can make a beer together? Or is it something more business-like that happens?
Probably both. You
Little
know,
both?
I mean, I think it could come from salespeople. It can come from a business arrangement. It can just come from friends. I think it could be a million different ways. That was just friends happening.
Nice.
Yeah. Which is the best way to have it happen, in my opinion.
Right.
Do we think we can get Ron Johnson to get us a round of beers?
Oh, that'd be great.
We're probably gonna wrap this one up. And we'll get around that, and we'll get Ron Johnson on here for the silliness. You guys, believe it or not, Rick, you guys are more of our serious segment.
Where what?
Serious. This is our serious, like our all business segment.
Here, Rick and I.
You two, yeah.
I'm pretty serious.
Yeah, we didn't want you guys. We didn't want you guys to come on here.
Can we do some weird questions before we end?
Well, we didn't want you to come on here and have Richard talking about snorting chaos.
I was going to say, I didn't say penis or cocaine, so we're good, man. Or gay. And
There's nothing wrong with that. Did you ever listen to a band called Crotch Duster?
No. No, but I will now.
I just did that yesterday, so I didn't know there was a band called that.
Makes a lot of sense now that you say it that way.
A lot of great hookers and cocaine. All
my kind of
sorts
band, yeah.
All right, so we'll end with some stupid questions. I'm gonna throw it out to Tim first. What was the last picture you took on your phone? On your camera?
Oh. I
Speaking of
I sent a screenshot to an old guy I used to work with. It was taken. It was actually Tom was in that. You see that picture?
No.
Tom George Hummel, who owns a homebrew shop in town, so Home Sweet Homebrew.
Yeah.
And then Brandon Greenwood, who I used to work with. I think it was probably taken 20 years ago. They look like 14-year-olds.
Oh, that's awesome. Rick, I'm coming at you. What was the last picture on your phone
that I took intentionally?
that you took intentionally?
That wasn't in a hotel room?
I mean, I would love to see it was in the hotel room.
That wasn't of me.
I was in Pittsburgh recently. Shit, I don't know.
Shit goes down in Pittsburgh, that's for sure.
Let me see.
He's going to pull his phone out. He's going to see exactly what it was. We'll see what that last picture was. It's on the Rick's
scary,
phone.
Especially
Can't wait.
I don't think it's very interesting, actually.
I'm just looking at a
Why don't
picture
you
of
put
his
that on the
cat.
table so we can all see it?
He's hiding.
I took a picture of my Sirius Radio.
Oh, what was on?
Patrice O'Neill, What Men Are.
Hell yeah.
It was a great segment on how cheating is actually more for the woman because it keeps her out of the know, and so she doesn't have to be upset about it. So I took it to send to some friends. This is probably not something I want my wife to ever listen to. So.
Boy, do I love Patrice. Patrice is a hero.
Patrice O'Neill.
Patrice is a hero. What else? Stupid shit. Favorite Ben & Jerry's flavor? Tim, go.
Vanilla.
Broken cookies.
Jesus Christ.
Such a fucking...
Half-baked.
Yep, Richard, you got that. That's yours.
I got one that I heard somebody ask somebody like the other day.
Go ahead.
In the middle of a job interview. If you could be somebody in a movie, would you be Han Solo or Indiana Jones?
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones.
There you go.
All right.
But like the Terminator version of Indiana Jones.
Nice.
All right. Because Arnold Schwarzenegger is the greatest actor to ever live. I'm dead fucking serious.
Wow.
Try to picture that. Yeah. All right.
Tim, if you were brewing beer for a living, what would you be doing?
I don't know. I'd be a drummer in a band. I'd probably start playing the drums again, right?
I'd be the new drummer in Youth Factory.
Yeah, I'd be in Youth Factory.
Second drummer of Youth
I'd be working the door here and
Second
playing
drummer.
drums.
I got a kit in the car.
There is literally a drum kit in Richard's shit wagon right outside. It's right out there.
Nice.
Richard is a drummer, and he never takes his gear out of his car.
I thought that was a truck.
He thinks it's a truck. He calls it a truck. It's definitely not a truck.
It's got four wheels. I don't know.
Speaking of that, you might have to put some more quarters in that meter there, Richard.
Yeah. I guess that's all I got. We've done an hour. We've said it all.
I got one last question.
Rob Forzik's got something.
One last question.
Rob Forzik gets the last word. Rob Forzik, the floor is yours.
After we get the expansion and everything's, whatever you guys are going to do, can we get Philly Pale Ale in cans?
Yes.
All right. Hit the button, Dan.
That's all we needed right there. That's all we needed. That's true. I did skip that one very important question. Yeah, that's a very important question. So whenever that renovation or that move or that stay or whatever the fuck is happening does happen, boy, I got to tell you, I would love to be standing outside in front of my smoker with a Philly Pale Ale can.
Yeah, man.
Oh, my God.
Hey, as a sales guy, when does this come out?
So let's see. What's today's date? 3 weeks?
Probably about 3 weeks.
Maybe
3 weeks.
Depending on that gentleman over there.
Depending on this
it
gentleman.
Could be 4.
Because we're actually behind a week. Because me and him left for San Diego on Monday,
story.
and he said he was going to have the episode ready for us to post before we left, and that never.
That didn't happen.
Before May 1st.
And it's so easy, too, because Dan does the real work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, before May 1st.
Because Yards will be hosting its annual Real Ale Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Sunday, May 1st.
Yes.
There we go. Nice. It will be.
And
Yeah.
we'll be here.
60 to 70 Firkins,
Yes.
hopefully.
I'm always here, so
We'll be here. We'll be here.
I'll be here for that.
Had to throw that out there.
The
as
other
a
thing I want
shameless self-promotion.
Well, I have another one on here real quick too that I wanted. I have them next to each
Me
other.
too. That's what it's actually staring at his questions. Doesn't say anything about hookers on it.
No, it doesn't say it. Smoke 'em and Real Ale, and then Smoke 'em if you got 'em is one of your barbecue festival,
Yes.
right? And that happens generally like the third week in September.
It happens. It's based on Tom's football schedule.
Okay.
So Tom Keogh has season tickets to
Right.
the Eagles games. So we wait until April till the schedule comes out.
Yep.
Then we base it upon Tom's schedule so we can go to the
That's the
game.
most wise comment.
Remember,
so
we
far.
figured that out.
I love that. Yeah.
Oh
We
yeah.
actually
reason.
figured that out when we did the beer versus wine dinner that we were talking about, because
That's
that was
right.
the first week
We
of football.
scheduled it for-
and there was no Eagles game, remember?
Yeah,
that's why
right.
we
Yeah,
sat
that's
and we
why
did the beer versus
They were on
wine
Monday
dinner.
night last year. That's right. Yeah.
Yep. We base everything
And we
off
couldn't
Tom's.
come to Smoke 'em if you got 'em, remember? Because we were
Yes.
doing the dinner that
Well,
night.
one of the reasons I asked about Smoke 'em is I was curious how someone who is on a pseudo-professional barbecue team gets themselves involved in Smoke 'em.
I think you just call Zach Arts.
Okay. All right. That's our
Zach
guy right there.
Zach Ertz from the Eagles.
Zarts.
Oh,
Zach Ertz from the Eagles.
what the fuck does he know about barbecue? Nothing. Yeah.
Our guy Craig over here is he has a barbecue team that's semi-professional.
Where is your barbecue? I mean, like right now.
He didn't bring any barbecue with him today.
That's right. You can't hear me whispering into the microphone.
He didn't bring any barbecue with him
See?
today.
I brought packing tape. That's all I was told to bring.
I asked him to bring packing tape, and he brought packing tape.
You had the opportunity to say packaging tape and brisket.
I should have. You don't have any brisket.
No brisket, no chili. You had the last chili.
I had the last
for-
of the chili. He just won first place chili at the Philly Homebrew Fest 2 weeks ago.
That's you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
That's the guy.
I read about you.
There he is.
I did.
There he is. So he does like a little competition barbecue team with his two sons. It's him and his two sons.
Nice,
And
that's awesome.
I was gonna see if we can get him in on Smoke 'em this year. So we'll put those wheels in motion, fella. Love to see you guys here.
We accept bribes for sure.
I will bring some next time.
Listen, if anybody has bribes, it's that guy. Brisket and pulled pork bribes for days.
Do
So
people ever ask you guys questions?
you could. I would love that.
Has anybody ever asked you a question?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but yeah, I'm sure.
What was the most interesting question you've ever been asked? It was the answer yes.
It probably was. What was the most interesting question I've been asked, Rob Forza?
How am I supposed to know?
I don't know, because you were probably
Because I know everything about you.
Because you were probably
We've been
standing
friends
there,
for that long.
and I forgot the question, and you remembered it. I have no idea what the most interesting question I've ever been asked was. Actually, it was, are you still friends with Richard?
And then why?
That's probably a good one. Yes, I am. It's been numbers and numbers of years, and yes, I am. And he's doing wonderfully. He's a prince among men.
I've had a couple friends actually say, I'm never going to lose touch with you because I want to see how your life unfolds.
And here we are. And that was 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
And you have not disappointed.
Nope, and those people still call me.
An equal number of people said, "I'm never going to talk to you again."
Yes.
And as I always say, he still lives like it's 20 years
He
ago.
sure does. He sure does. On our next segment, we're actually going to get into very briefly one of his many jobs. He just got a new job, and we don't know what it is or how it happened, and it's always an interesting story.
He's got, another one from the last time we got together?
yeah. Stay tuned.
All right.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I am excited.
Sex toy operator?
Oh, that's a thing with him.
Oh, I know.
You have no idea. Well, I'm going to stick around for the next set.
Definitely
Tim, thanks so much for sitting with us.
Oh, sure thing. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for the education on
Yeah, man. This
morning and on the podcast.
Super in depth, super nerdy info that we love. We soak that up,
yeah,
man.
absolutely.
We love all of that.
it's great.
I think everybody on our little sales team got a lot out of that also.
Yeah.
So definitely thank you for taking the time today. We appreciate it. The Rick,
Always a pleasure.
don't be too hard on these boys. like I always joke with Ron Johnson that when he's out there painting, that you're in the office shaking your fist going, Johnson!
If I ever fucking see him paint a picture, honestly, between 9 to 6 o'clock, if he's painting a picture, I'll fucking kill him.
He's sitting behind. He'll have a brawler on his easel, and he'll be painting a landscape with snow and shit. and then he'll post it, and it'll be like 2:15 in the afternoon, and I'll be sitting in New Jersey, and I can hear the Rick's head explode. Johnson!
Oh my God! So again, we're hiring a South Jersey rep.
We'll break the news to him. So thank you so much, guys, for coming
Thank you
on.
very much. We appreciate it.
Everybody come visit Yards. Look for Yards in your local liquor stores and on tap at your local watering holes and places that sell great craft beer. Thank you for coming on, guys. This is the end of our first segment at Yards Brewing. We'll be back for another one where we'll learn what Richard's new job is. We'll drink a few more beers. And Ron Johnson will come on and explain
what he's going to do now. He doesn't have a job.
What's the second segment about?
We don't know.
Can I get on the second segment?
Sure.
Okay, great.
All right.
Stay tuned.
I'd like to introduce Frank Rio for that segment as well.
Frank Rio.
Yeah, exactly.
We got
I'll start with this.
I want to hear that Philly accent, son.
Right to the Jersey guy now.
Is he?
Yeah, he's Jersey
Hey everybody, just wanted to take a minute to remind you that we are on all social media forums. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Fear Craft Beer. You can also like us on Facebook, Fear of a Craft Beer Planet. You will get all of our news, updates, tweets on everything Fear of a Craft Beer Planet, as well as when new episodes are going to air and be uploaded to your iTunes, SoundCloud, or Android podcast apps. Cheers.